Hey basketball fans, are you ready to win real money? Check out Pick 6 from DraftKings. When it comes to basketball payouts, DraftKings Pick 6 dunks on its rivals, including prize picks. Just select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like points, rebounds, three-pointers, and more. Pick 6 is available in most states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and more. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6 and cash in your basketball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Episode 100 of the Habs Culture Podcast. My name is Justin Schwartz, alongside Liam Baum. Liam, I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot that this was episode 100. And the truth is that I don't want to sound generic here or cliche, but time flies when you are having fun, even amidst all these exams and studying that we haven't been able to get to recording. But the truth is that we wanted to come out with an episode. It is episode 100, and you guys are probably saying, well, what do you guys have for us? Or what do you guys have in store for us today? And the truth is, nothing out of the ordinary, but we do promise that we will get something going in the episodes that kind of follow this 100th episode and do something a little bit more special. But we'll keep it kind of, second time I use this word, generic today. And the truth is, though, is that despite this being episode 100, Liam, the focus is not on that. The focus is on the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have been battling game after game for the last 15 games since the Four Nations break. We talked a bit after that break, but not too much. And the truth is that the Habs have been on a complete heater. They find themselves sitting in the second wildcard spot in the East with 74 points, with a record of 33, 27, and 8 through 68 games. That means that there are 14 games remaining. Now, a little quick recap. They had their last 2 games. Their last game was against the Islanders. They dropped that one in overtime by a score of 4-3. And the game before that, they beat the Ottawa Senators, who are right ahead of them in that first wildcard spot, by a score of 6-3 with an empty net goal from Brendan Gallagher. That was poetic. But Liam, I'll throw it on to you now. I feel like I've yapped a little bit too much here so far. What are your thoughts since the Four Nations break, and what are you expecting for these next 14 games?
Yeah, I mean, first things first, again, 100th episode. Maybe we need like a soundboard. That'll be our next thing. But 100 episodes, it's actually pretty insane. I know I only came along, I want to say like episode around the 50th.
Yeah, about halfway through.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's crazy that it's been this many episodes, so we got to shout out all the listeners who always come back and listen to us yap about the Canadiens, whether it's good or bad, and during the good times and the bad times. But things are looking up right now. The last 2 games, I think, is a lot of what we're going to see in this final 14-game stretch. 2 pretty good comebacks from the Canadiens in third periods where they were down 2. So although they don't get the win against the Islanders, the 1 point was huge. And now only sitting 3 points behind the Senators, and all the teams that are below them continue to lose, obviously other than the Islanders, but everything's going their way. And I've had a bunch of people ask me, Liam, do you really think the Canadiens are going to make a playoff spot? And my non-biased answer, my true answer is yes. I think they're better than every single team that's below them right now. And I think they're even better than some of the teams in playoff spots, counting the West as well. So I think the Canadiens are a team that are actually very deep. Although they might not have a McDavid, they might not have a McKinnon, they might not have, the most star-studded goalies and defensemen. They're a deep team that's obviously a unit together. They work really well together, and you can see it on the bench when Anderson tucked that empty netter goal. it's a team that is going to do some damage because they have so much chemistry and because they're just so connected. So I really do see them in this final 14 game stretch pulling it off. And we're going to show you guys some odds as well, some of the percentages. But I was looking on Instagram, and Data Driven Hockey, we've talked about them before. They suspect that if the Canadiens win the next 8 of their next 14 games, that should be enough to make the playoffs. Let me ask you, do you think that's possible?
I do. I've checked their schedule, and although it's not particularly easy, I do think it's in the cards with how they're playing. I mean, look, if we look even to last night against the Islanders, we can probably both sit here and agree that if you have 40 shots and your opponent has 20, you deserve to win that game. And I know it's not all about shots, but the truth is that more times than not, with those stats alone, you could probably predict that without looking at the score that the Habs win that game. But unfortunately, they dropped that one.
Not to mention the offside goal that I don't think was conclusive enough to be overturned, but regardless.
There you go. And the truth is that, bring that up for a second, I just find it so funny that, you look at a sport like tennis that has, you literally know exactly where the ball is on the line. And yet we're sitting here in the NHL watching these games. And the truth is that they should be able to have technology that's advanced enough to know exactly where the puck is on that blue line with respect to where Suzuki is on the ice. So anyway, that's just, a kind of, maybe if you're listening, Gary Bettman, it might be a good idea to explore that option in the offseason. But Liam, I was going to pull up the standings here. Before I did, though, I didn't do it at the top. Just wanted to thank everyone that listens to this show. I mean, if you've made it this far into the episode, which I hope you have 5 minutes in, if you didn't disengage too quickly, but I hope that you guys enjoy the show. Very, very thankful for everyone that listens and for, those of you that continue to listen because, it started off with shout out Mark Anthony, original co-host with me. And then Liam came along and we've had so much fun doing this. And the truth is it's been regardless of how many listens we get, but the people that do come back, it really does drive us to keep going. So really, really huge shout out to you guys. And thank you so much for listening. And hopefully we'll make it to 200 sooner rather than later. That's obviously the next milestone, or maybe 150. But we're gonna try our best to keep going. Maybe when the summer comes around and school isn't or work isn't such a big burden. But
more time on our hands.
There you go. But nonetheless, let's get right to it. I did say that I would pull up the standings, and I will right now. If you are watching on YouTube, you do see this on your screen. If you're listening, we'll kind of go through it. Everything stays the same in the Atlantic with the first 3 spots. Everything stays the same in the Metro with those first 3 spots. New Jersey in the Metro has the 3rd spot in the top 3. I wouldn't say that they're falling, but it doesn't really matter because there's no teams aside from the Islanders in the Metro that can catch them for that spot. But the Islanders are realistically way too far out at this point in the season to catch them. Islanders have 72 points. New Jersey has 80. What we're focused on is the fact that the Ottawa Senators have 77 points in that first wild card, followed by the Canadiens with 74, followed by the Islanders with 72, then the Rangers with 72. So those 2 New York teams there back to back. Columbus slipped a bit since the last time we spoke with 71 points, followed by Detroit with 70, Boston with 69, and the Penguins with 66, but they're realistically not making the playoffs. They're too far out. But this is an interesting race, Liam. I know you mentioned before that you had spoken with people, 14 games left. You're relatively confident that they can get it done. I think I'm confident too, and I think it's a question of getting hot at the right time. I think the Canadiens have seen a lot of success at their peak. I think at their peak, they're probably one of the hottest teams in the league, but at their worst, they're probably one of the worst teams in the league. But right now, they're hot at the right time. I do think if we kind of go through the schedule, some of those games are tough, right? You've got another game against Florida. You've got 2 more against, you got 1 more against the Sens. You got another one against Columbus somewhere in there. You got Colorado Saturday night. I mean, these are just a few, but they're really going to have to dig deep and find a way to play about 500 hockey down the stretch here.
Mm-hmm. And I think almost all their matchups are against teams that are over 500. I know there's a game against Chicago in there, but most of the teams are over 500 or right there in a playoff spot. So it's not going to be easy. But kind of just switching it up really quick on the same sort of topic, not jumping to conclusions too quick, but if the Canadiens do get into the playoffs as an 8th seed, they would be facing more than likely the Washington Capitals, who are far and away ahead of everybody else in the Eastern Conference. So that would mean the Canadiens would be on the Metro side of the playoffs, which would mean if they won the first round against the Capitals, they would be playing either Carolina or New Jersey, which in my opinion, again, not jumping to conclusions too quickly, because obviously playing Washington is a challenge in itself. Playing Carolina or New Jersey is more favorable than playing any of those Atlantic teams in the divisional spots. Am I wrong to say that?
No, you're not wrong to say that. Honestly, well, let's dissect those two teams quickly. The Carolina Hurricanes have been playing up and down hockey, I think, in the last couple months. The Rantanen thing, kind of, we didn't even really speak about that because we didn't really speak much about the trade deadline, but we'll operate under the assumption that listeners know what's up and know what happened in the NHL at the trade deadline. But ever since that Rantanen trade, where they sent him to Dallas, Carolina's been playing up and down. They haven't been getting consistent goaltending. I think their offense is kind of stalled at times. Svechnikov is day to day, whatever the case may be. I always draw back to my favorite guy, Rod Brindamore, but nonetheless, not playing consistently enough. New Jersey, on the other hand,
I don't want to contradict you, but they've won 8 in a row now that I'm looking at it.
Okay, so
they were bad. They were bad when they had Rantanen, and it seems like they've turned it around. But yes,
I think they lost the majority of their games when Rantanen was there.
Oh yeah. But I do agree with you in the fact that they're not as strong on paper as they were when they acquired Rantanen. I think they've been hot, but at the same time, they aren't a consistent team. So sorry to interrupt there.
No, you're good. And the truth is that with the Devils, I mean, look, ultimately it boils down to injuries. Like no Jack Hughes, no Dougie Hamilton, and if you want to talk about goaltending, I was talking about this with my buddy, and the truth is that without Jake Allen, this team is not even in that spot, nowhere near it. Jacob Markstrom has been abysmal, and he hasn't played consistently enough. And we can see that if there were any other Metro team that was contending in one of those 2 wildcard spots, they would probably jump over New Jersey down the stretch. New Jersey hasn't played consistent hockey, that's for sure. And with kind of going back to your point, I'd rather play any of those 2 teams over the Leafs, Tampa, or Florida, right? Any of those teams. So I think you're right to say that for sure.
Yeah. And I think if the Canadiens do squeak in, I really don't think the Capitals, I mean, they're a great team, don't get me wrong. But in the past 5 years, they haven't been a good team. And I think when you face a team like that, that's coming into the playoffs for the first time in a while, that have a bunch of guys who haven't played a lot of playoff hockey, that makes a difference. There's a difference between playing a team like Florida in the first round, who just came off a Stanley Cup win, who have a full team of guys who know what it takes to win. I'm not saying Washington doesn't have guys like that, because obviously they do, but there's a difference when you've been in as a playoff team for the last 5-6 years, and when you're coming off, I know they made the playoffs last year, but it was lucky and they didn't win a single playoff game. So to me, if I'm going into the playoffs as the Canadiens, the most favorable matchup in the position they're in right now would be the Washington Capitals. And I don't think that's a very hot take.
No, I don't think so. And I think if there's one thing that we've seen in the past is that when teams get a little bit too comfortable in the standings, they kind of coast right into the playoffs. And the truth is that the Capitals have obviously overplayed expectations. They've played above expectations. And the truth is that I don't know, like, look, I can pull it back up here, but if you look at the standings again, I mean, they have like you mentioned, they have 100 points in this Eastern Conference. The next highest is 88 with Carolina. So they're playing above anyone else in the East. They know that their spot is secure. They've secured their spot, right? Statistically speaking.
Yeah.
And the truth is that they have 14 games. If Spencer Carberry was as good of a coach as he's been given credit for this year, which I will 100% give him credit for, I would be telling my team, like, pedal to the metal for 14 games. We're not resting anyone. We're absolutely just we're playing as if every single game from here until the first round of the playoffs is a playoff game. And back to your point, the reason that I think that I wouldn't call it a favorable matchup, but I think it might be kind of a trap matchup for the Capitals, because the Habs are buzzing. The Capitals can take their foot off the gas, and we've seen that before. Like what happened when Columbus faced Tampa in the first round? Josh Anderson absolutely destroyed Tampa. And what was that a testament to? Well, that was a testament to the fact that Tampa Bay was way better than anyone else in the regular season that year. Way better. They coasted right into the playoffs. They got to the playoffs. Columbus was buzzing, and Columbus really took their, swept their feet from under them. So
hey,
that's kind of
look
the way
at
I
the
see it.
Panthers versus the Bruins
A couple years ago.
3 years ago. Best team ever in the regular season, taken down by an 8th seed. So it's possible. I'm also going to say this, that history tends to repeat itself no matter what it is, no matter if it's a new team or not. 2010, the Canadiens were an 8th seed, beat Washington in the first round as the 1st seed. So, hey, that's it's very possible. It's not like this has never happened before. Obviously, the Canadiens have to get into the playoffs first, so can't jump to conclusions like I've said already. And one other thing I just want to bring up quickly is that I don't know if this matters really, but Washington really didn't add anything at the deadline. If you look at the past Stanley Cup winners, they all made pretty significant adds at the trade deadline, whereas Washington decided to keep their group together, which, I mean, I don't think it's a bad decision, but they didn't add a game changer. They added Beauvillier, and I think that was it. But that's not exactly the most,
It's not the recipe.
It's not the recipe, and also you're not committing to going all in. Like, why didn't they just go all in? I know that Ryan Leonard may be coming, but the point is, why not go after a guy who's won cups, who's had experience in the playoffs, to try and beef up that forward core? Because I think it is deep, but they're not as star-studded as they may seem. Like, they have a lot of guys who are probably overproducing, but at the same time, like, you had the picks to potentially go after a big fish at the deadline, and they chose not to. So, not that the Canadiens, are guaranteed to beat the Capitals if they do play them, but I feel like based on all these factors, it's just favorable for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one thing I will say about the deadline thing is that I think that their deadline was in the offseason, weirdly enough. And like you could make the case, that they can go out and get someone and add. I just think that ultimately, if you look at their roster and their roster turnover compared to last year, I mean, guys, like we've talked about this, but Dubois, Mangiapane, they go out and add Lars Eller again, Taylor Radish, their whole fourth line aside from Nick Dowd, so Beauvillier and Duhaime, and then they go out and get Chychrun, right? Matt Roy,
Thompson.
Matt Roy was there already. No, he was in LA.
Yeah.
But
Thompson.
My point is that I think exactly. Logan Thompson. Like, I just think that their roster is kind of
it was a complete 180.
It was a revamp completely, and the truth is, I don't think at least I didn't expect, I don't know about you, but Alexi Protas to be as good as he is this year and kind of being a huge driver of offense only strictly at 5-on-5. Like, he doesn't get any power play time.
It's pretty
Think about
insane.
That. So
it's actually very insane.
Obviously some overperformers there, but I definitely do agree with you. Favorable, I don't know if that's the word, but definitely, like, I would say it's not favorable for the Canadiens, but it's a trap matchup for Washington in that case.
Yeah, I think it's favorable compared to playing an Atlantic team because all those teams beefed up heavy at the deadline. Like Panthers adding Seth Jones, adding Marchand, the Leafs adding what's his name?
Brandon Carlo and Lawton.
And then the Lightning adding Bjorkstrand and Gord. So it's not like those teams took the deadline lightly. Like, they're all beefing up, whereas Washington decided, let's just ride with our team. And I think the Jets did the same things. So
no, you're 100% right.
Let's switch it up and let's take a look at some of the player stats that the Canadiens have had over the last 12 games. So basically, since they've returned from the Four Nations tournament. Are you able to pull those up? I have them here. But
I'll get them going.
So obviously, in the last stretch, the Canadiens' top players have been absolutely amazing. They've been as hot as they can be. Guys like Suzuki, Caulfield, Hudson, Laine, Slav, and then your depth guys all playing super well. I wouldn't say there's many underproducers, but there are a few. So let's pull that up. Let's take a look. So as we can see at the top, Nick Suzuki, 12 games, 19 points. Absolutely amazing on the season. It looks like he has the potential to hit 90 points, which I think was one of our predictions at the start of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And last year as well, we were taking a look at the possibility of him hitting 90. So Nick Suzuki absolutely on fire. Had one called back yesterday, unfortunately, but nonetheless having an insane comeback after being snubbed from Team Canada. And I think the same goes for Cole Caulfield. Point per game, +8, 7 goals. He's climbing up those goal scoring ranks and is not far behind second place, honestly. I think Nylander has 36 or 37, and Caulfield has 33. And then obviously Lane Hudson. I feel like we need to have a conversation at some point, maybe not this episode, about the Calder when it's a little bit close to the end of the season, but Lane Hudson truly making a case on why he is the best rookie this season. And I think the stats speak for themselves. And then obviously Patrick Laine, I wouldn't say quietly having a very good comeback year, but putting up point per game since he came back from Four Nations and not scoring any goals at that tournament is really good for him. And then Slavkovsky playing so well. And if we scroll to the side a little bit, I don't know if you're able to scroll a little. Yeah, there you go. Leading the team in shots. And I believe he's leading the team in hits as well over this last 12 game span. So that's very much Brady Tkachuk-esque. He's looking really, really good. Someone pointed out to me that Slavkovsky is better when he moves the puck quickly. And I think that's a really good point. Rather than him holding onto the puck, he's just so much better at making that quick play, finding the open man, and battling down low. His best skills are kind of when he doesn't have the puck and when he's moving it quick and forechecking. So when he's starting to establish his game very well, and I think second half Slav truly is a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd agree with that 100%. I mean, like at the end of the day, I feel like there's so many times where I watch him and I'm completely frustrated that he just gives up the puck without even picking up his head. And I'm like, can you just take a second? Like take 1 second. Like no one's going to rip your head off. Like it's okay. I just think that that's I think he's making the quicker play, but I also think that he's being equally as patient. And I think that that's gone a long way for him. I think we saw that last year back half. I'm just struggling, even though, look, I'll give him his flowers. 11 points in 12 games. He's a +8, like you mentioned, leading the team in shots, leading the team in hits. But when are we going to have this discussion that there has to be some sort of consistency? And at the end of the day, you would prefer to see this type of production at this point in the season rather than seeing it at the beginning of the season when it doesn't matter. Because, down the stretch, this contributes to wins. However, I think I wouldn't call it the unfortunate part because at the end of the day, do individual accolades matter all that much when you're pushing for a playoff spot? But you look at Slavkovsky, fourth on the team in points, 41 and 65. He's probably on about a 50 to 55 point pace, same as last year. From an individual perspective, I ask you this, Liam, and it's not really rhetorical. I genuinely want to hear what you think. Do you think his game has evolved all that much since last year? And when I say last year back half, when he was thriving, has his game changed that much? And not that it should, but if we're going to look at it from last year to this year and we're going to have pretty much the same point production, my question is kind of like, where did his game, did he get better is my question. I don't know how else to frame it.
I mean, I think that's a tough question to answer because he's still so young. But if you want to look at if you want to compare other prospects, has Bedard gotten significantly better from last year? There are players who have, like Logan Cooley obviously has taken a step forward, but a guy like McTavish, has he really gotten any better? Like it's going to take time. And I understand your point. Like his play currently is very similar to how he played last year in the second half, but I'm focused on the progression from the start of this year to right now. And I think that's what you got to be excited about with Slav. You just hope he finds consistency playing like this because he's not going to be an 82-point guy. He's not going to be a 35-goal scorer.
But I think I think he can easily be a 75-point guy.
He could be. And that's his pace right now, right? So I think his most needed improved skill is consistency. And I don't know if that's a skill. I don't know if that's a mentality.
Not a skill, but it's a mindset.
Yeah, exactly. So if he's able to show flashes of this type of production, then I don't see why eventually, when he's not 20 years old, maybe when he's 22, when he's 23, he's able to consistently play like this. So I don't think we should really look and compare it to last year, because I think start of this year and the end of last year are just like two completely different people.
But that's my point. That's what doesn't make sense to me, is that
I
why?
think it's a consistency thing. It's just
Right, but it's not like it's a minimal difference. Like I
no,
think I
not
think
at
we can
all.
both agree that at the beginning of the season we were saying, like, obviously jokingly, but like, why does he suck? Like,
Mhm.
why can't he make a simple play? Like, why does it look like someone had a gun to his head with every decision he was making on the ice? Now it's like, okay, I'm going out playing a little bit more confident. I'm playing with two guys that can finish, that can, do their job at an elite level. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not harping on him. I'm just trying to find kind of because not to counter your point, but if you look at guys like Bedard or McTavish or even whatever, any guys from that draft more specifically, I think the difference was, or not from that draft, but I just mean kind of in the last few drafts. The one thing that I'm kind of harping on with Slav, or dialing in on Slav, is he was a first overall pick, but a first overall pick that was picked mainly for the upside that he can get to. Where's his upside? You didn't draft him for his floor. You drafted him for his ceiling. And there's a
But I
lot of
think he's
prospects where
showing.
that's the other way around.
I feel like he's showing flashes of what he's gonna
Yes,
be. But
100%. I'm just confused as to why like last year at the end of the year we said there's no doubt in our mind that he gets to 20 goals.
mhm.
I mean, there's 14 games left. He's at 14. Like,
Again, the slow start doesn't help at all. I
yeah, I'm
think
just trying to understand it.
no, I get what you mean, but I do think coming into the league at 18 years old does affect you in terms of development. Like, you're playing your whole first year feeling like such a, you're not accustomed to the speed, you're not accustomed to the ice. You played in Europe, and it's like a completely different game, and you lose so much confidence when you're not producing the way you used to produce, or the way you used to be better than everyone your whole life, and now you're the worst player on the ice, right? So maybe putting him in the AHL would have been advantageous for him. But I think what we're seeing now is what we need to expect and what he needs to expect from himself, because he can't go into next season doing what he did at the start of this year in the
No,
same exactly. So all we can hope for is that he continues to play at this pace and also show that he's able to produce a little bit by himself, because I do think, I mean, it's hard to separate himself from Cole and Suze, but I do think a lot of his production comes from them.
I don't disagree. I think would I call it a concern? No, but I would definitely call it, like, I think because ultimately I don't want to fast forward to next year too quickly, but just surface level here. Demidov is coming to the Montreal Canadiens one way or another. Unfortunately, it's not going to be at the end of this season, which would have been pretty cool. But with all the complications with SKA or SKA or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
St. Petersburg, like, there's obviously some stuff going on there. They're benching him for the playoffs when he's their top scorer, like, and giving garbage excuses. But you know, my question is that Demidov comes in. Is he a guy that you put on the top line, or is he a guy that you put with line A, but then you have to go find a 2C, which we're going to talk about later in this episode? But my point is that, like Slav is not going to just be the first line left wing with Caulfield and Suzuki for the rest of his career. It's not that it's not possible. It's just not realistic because pieces move.
Mhm. Yeah.
And what happens when he's not there? But again, that's a question of progression. It's a mindset. It's a mentality that he has to kind of keep consistent from year to year. And I think that the way that he's playing now, look, like, it's been 2 years in a row that his back half has been a 75-point pace. The first half of both years has probably been like more like a 30-point pace.
Yeah.
So is it the end of the world? No. It's a very interesting trend, is my point. And like,
Yeah.
you could tell in his game too. That's the funny part.
Yeah, and I think you got to also think of it from a team perspective. How would the Canadians be in the standings right now if like Slavkovsky was playing, how he's playing right now? Would they be higher in the standings? So again, I think the Canadians are. I think they're the youngest team in the NHL in terms of
I
average
wonder.
age. They're
I think
very.
you're right.
The score has it. I know Buffalo's very young, and they're very young, so you can't expect this team to be super consistent, but I think the right pieces are on the team, and obviously adding Demidov, adding a guy like Michael Hage in the future, and Reinbacker too, who's been pretty good in the AHL, are all
Yeah.
going to be key pieces. So I mean, it's definitely something to be excited about in the future. And right now, there's a lot of exciting things going on. So we can only focus on what's happening right now. Um, Another few guys that have just been very solid. Obviously, Gallagher, heart and soul of this team. And if you want to talk about contracts, Brendan Gallagher is a guy who deserves his contract, no matter how much he's making, because this guy's just a warrior. Christian
17
Dvorak,
goals too.
yeah,
Very underrated.
17 goals for Brendan Gallagher. So very much a bounce back year for him at his age and after all the injuries he's gone through and everything he's going through right now. So shout out to Brendan Gallagher. Christian Dvorak somehow had the best game of, I think, of his career. After we consistently rip on Christian Dvorak, he puts down a
I mean,
4-point
rightfully so,
performance.
though. Rightfully so. Not rip on him, but I mean, like at the end of the day, something's got to give.
Yeah. But I mean, he's trying to get that $7 million contract, I guess, in free agency. But nonetheless, Struble and Hudson, great defensive pairing. I really like them together.
I mean, Struble's a +9 in his last 12.
5
I mean, I know
assists
it's
too?
a team. I know it might. Yeah, exactly. For a guy, and I was talking about this yesterday, and I'm sorry to cut you off if you had something else
No,
to
no.
say about Struble, but Struble is the guy that I want on the Montreal Canadiens third pairing for the foreseeable future. No questions asked. Like, I think that there's obviously going to be a lot of internal competition. Reinbacher, Mailloux, like Mayu's got to take some strides defensively to be able to play consistently at the NHL level. But those are two guys that you would hope to have in your lineup down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Hudson, I mean, Matt, but my point is that there's going to be internal competition for that young core,
Tons.
but I find it very, very difficult at this point in time. I know it's a small sample size, but at this point in time to say Struble does not deserve a spot in that third pairing, because that's a guy that can easily play 15 to 18 minutes a game for you. Physical. He's a good skater for his size, and he's smart. He limits his mistakes. Yeah. And that's something that you don't really teach. And I think that that's something that Struble needs to get a little bit more praise for.
And I was also asked this question. If the Canadiens make the playoffs and Goulie's able to return, who's coming out of the lineup?
I don't even know. I don't
do you
even know.
Rush Goulie back?
I almost feel like they might go as messed up as this might sound, like maybe Goulie's healthy. Like not at this given time, but I'm saying maybe he's healthy come playoffs if that is the case for the Canadiens, and maybe they're just like, look, like this unit is playing well, and you are one of our best, if not our best defensemen overall, but we rather not rush this injury. Because we can both agree that Goulie's injury prone at this point in his career, right? He's gone through way too many injuries. Save him for next year and call it a day. Obviously, they would never come out and say that, but because look, Matheson has his flaws, and he is, in my opinion, just a mess with the puck. Like his puck handling skills, especially in the D zone and his decision making, have just given me headaches. But other than him, I cannot say one bad thing about Hudson, Savard, Carrier, Struble, Jack-Eye. And Matheson is overall, he's good. But how? Name one guy right now that is playing so bad that you'd have to change something. Yeah. The truth is that it's not. There's nothing.
That's why I'm asking you. Like maybe it's the case where, again, if the Canadiens make the playoffs, you're rolling into the series with the unit you have that's playing well. And if they go down like 2-0 or something, that's when a change happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. But anyways, either way, it would be great for Goulie to be healthy and playing because, like you said, he is one of our best, if not our best, two-way defensemen. And he does provide a lot and has shown that during that stretch where the Canadiens went like 13-1-3 or whatever, 13-3-1. He was a big reason why. So I'd love to see Goulie back and healthy. It's just you can't mess up the chemistry and you can't mess up what's working right now.
100%. Another player to note, one more thing before we move on to the playoff odds. Josh Anderson, even though his stats haven't really reflected it, I feel like his game has taken a huge jump in the last 12, but not even last 12. I would say like last 5-ish. He's playing with a little bit of a jump, a little bit with a playoff motivation. 4 goals in his last 12, +9. That whole line honestly deserves a shout out over the last few games. Evans has kind of slowed down despite still being fifth on the team in scoring. But again, that's not the guy that you're depending on to get points. And we never even talked about his contract, but very favorable for the Canadiens. We got a lot of heat on Twitter for saying that we prefer Evans and the role that he brings to this team over a first round pick. Now, just to preface, this was also before or during a time when people believed that there was no chance that Evans would re-sign with the Canadiens because he was seeking a lot more money. He ends up coming to the Canadiens for just south of $3 million. But the truth is that I still stand by that statement now. I don't think there was ever going to be a place that Evans wanted to play other than the Canadiens. He is so good at what he does, and to find someone like that, even if it is in the first round, is very difficult. To find a guy that plays in the to draft a guy that in the back end of the first round that even becomes a full-time NHLer is unlikely.
And we talked about that. I think we're both very happy with the decision of him re-signing. And obviously right now that line of Evans, Armia, and Heineman has been relatively cold. I think the positive way to look at it is that Gallagher, Anderson, and who else is on that line?
Gallagher, Anderson, and Devo.
And Devo are stepping up when the other line is cooling down. So it's all about, getting the production from your depth pieces at the right times. If some guys go cold, the other one's got to step up. And I think that's the case right now, and a big reason why the Canadiens are winning. If you look at that game against the Senators, 6 goals, and I know Suzuki had one, but it was on the second power play unit. So it was like 6 depth goals, or 6 goals with all the depth guys on the ice. So those are the games that get you into the playoffs. And again, they win you playoff games.
And another fun fact, Liam, and I'm sure you saw this too, but the Canadiens are actually the only team, or no, not the only team. Sorry, they are the team with the most double-digit scorers or double-digit scorers in the league. So that just is a testament again to their depth scoring. And obviously, people will be in the comments saying, well, you hope that Anderson can deliver double-digit goals on his contract. You hope that Gallagher can deliver double-digit goals on his contract. But the truth is that the expectation for that has dropped significantly in the last few years. So to see it happening now at this point in time is a plus. And the last guy before going into playoff, not predictions, but the odds there. Yeah, Newhook. 4 points in his last 12 and a -2. Weirdly enough, Liam, I don't know what you think, but those stats do not reflect the way that he's been playing whatsoever.
No, he's one of the most noticeable guys anytime he's on the ice, right?
I agree. He's getting unlucky, I feel.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get into the second line center role, but right now he's filling that position very, very fine.
Yeah. I mean, he's only shooting, not that it's over the last 12 games, he's shooting 13.6%, which is honestly not horrible, but I feel in the last couple games more specifically, he's had some, yesterday he went bar down and it hit it missed. And then, anyway.